And one of the things you alluded to just now was your battle with mental health and just that darkness that comes with depression. And I mean, that got pretty serious with you. I mean, you even attempted an overdose at 15 that I've read about you. And so your dad was kind of um, a an impetus for you to fight through that, since he was fighting through it as well.
Yeah.
What was that journey like for you, though, specifically, when you're still a young kid, 14, 15 years old, trying to battle those kinds of things? Because that's when we feel the most, right? When we're just
Um,
turning into adolescence, and then sometimes those feelings we can't really understand fully. So what did that look like for you?
um, I had eating disorders.
Yeah.
I had struggles with bulimia, body dysphoria is what they call it now. Back then, it was just like I didn't like myself.
Hmm.
But no, like it. What it looked like for me was actually just a lot of praying. I mean, honestly, I'm just gonna be honest to God. It was just God that got me through and didn't lead me down that path again. And in my early 20s, early in my marriage, I discovered some books about the brain and mental health and everything. And I was able to read those and learn more about how my brain works with my body and all that stuff. And that really helped me to start putting some pieces together and kind of it's like a broken puzzle is what depression is. Just everything
Absolutely.
just doesn't make sense. And then you start putting the pieces together, you're like, oh, this is where this fits and all that. And it was a really eye-opening experience for me early on in my marriage. Is really where I started seeing the tide turn. But up until that point, I was just kind of just battling. Didn't understand back then. I mean, this is what been 20 something years ago. I mean, there wasn't advice. There wasn't a lot of knowledge and understanding of mental health, and especially being homeschooled. I didn't have like friends that might have, the school system started, implementing some stuff early on, but we weren't really like exposed to that in our tiny little town either. And so
Mhm.
it's just, it was a lot of struggling alone with the Lord, and He got me through, and then
And of course, people
gave
can be mean too, right? Like, being homeschooled probably helped you a little bit with that, not having to be around kids that will be worse than your inner voice, or perhaps not as worse. Sometimes we can beat ourselves up more, right? But um,
right.
yeah, it's tough when you don't like yourself, and then other people are kind of, you know, shoring up that point that you're making with yourself, and so that doesn't help you kind of climb your way out of it. As you've matured, though, do you feel like you understand your inner voice better now? You called it a broken puzzle. Do you feel like the pieces are fitting easier now for you?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like I can see the picture taking shape now, and so
Yeah.
like for me, it the maturity. Honestly, I mean, learning about the human brain and how it works. I mean, honestly, I could go down a rabbit hole for you,
Hmm.
but the things I learned about how literally maturity is where you start being able to overcome a lot of like the hormonal things and stuff, and the mental things and all that just works together. And maturity was where I was able to start like logically thinking things through. I was very illogical. I didn't help either that, I mean, I got married and had a baby right away and everything. And it was just, I'm a female, so all the hormones were
Hmm.
crazy. So
That's
I
not
just went,
just a female thing, I assure
well,
you.
no, I know, but like
Yeah.
with the birth and then
Yeah,
the
yeah.
babies
No,
and
I
all
get
that.
it. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And then it was just a lot of trials, and you know what, the world, everybody's going through something,
Hmm.
and that's another, that's just really, it always swings back to all of my struggles have inspired me to want to help people
Hmm.
through theirs. I mean,
Yeah.
because there's people that are going through the exact same stuff I went through, or some sort of form of it. And if my journey and my story or what I do could give them some
Yeah.
help or hope, I'm all for it.
And that's what I
So
love about your story is your advocacy for other people and teaching others using your story. And I feel like depression a lot of times is, and this is probably like mood disorders, bipolar and stuff like that, can be really associated with the extremes, right? Like you're either really really negative, you're really really positive, and we never really focus on the middle areas. And I feel like if we can learn how to do that more, right? Like take the
right.
extreme and push it more to the middle, and take the extreme positive and push it more to the middle. That way we don't worry about the extremes anymore. It's really really not that bad, and it's really not that good. It's just normal, right? And those are the kinds of things that, like, I feel like we don't really know how to teach ourselves. You know what I mean?
It's true. It's true. It's all about balance. It
Yeah,
really is,
yeah.
because there's a point where, you don't want to become a arrogant jerk
Hmm.
by being so positive about yourself, but you also don't want to beat yourself down where you just think you're trash.
Yeah.
And so you got to find that middle ground, and it really is. It's comes down to just balance, like you
Mhm.
said. Like, you got to not be too crazy either way.
Yeah, and you need to, above all, too. You got to be honest with yourself too, right? Like,
Yes.
you can't fake it till you make it all the time. Sometimes you
Yeah.
got to allow yourself that time to really hurt, almost, right? Like, you have to allow that for yourself. I know that. Did you start writing about this time as well when you're dealing with this darkness?
Yes, actually, I'd started playing guitar about um, a month before I tried to take my life. So I started playing guitar in August, and then tried in September of my 15th year. I attempted my own life, and immediately after that, I mean, it was a miracle that I'm here, actually, because I shouldn't be. And but no, yeah, right after all that happened, I gave my life to God again. I was like, God, I can't do this on my own. And I just started writing, and I wrote gospel music from the beginning, and wrote some other, I wrote some country inspired songs early on, but I didn't really embrace that until years down the road. But gospel music, and just, but just doing it in a way that, I have a song called, Lord, I'm Yours. And it was talking about how God, takes care of us and holds us, and helps us through everything. And so those kind of the songs are what really got me through, even listening to my own music. But then I went through the thing of, like, because, depression and all the wishy-washy craziness. I hated my own voice. I didn't want to hear myself
Yeah.
sing. I was just like, I suck.
And
So,
that's your
uh,
imposter syndrome, and that's normal, right?
mhm,
Like, we don't realize that
yeah,
at a young age. We don't realize what that is, right? So
yeah,
a lot of times that's the wall, right? A lot of us just don't get past that, and I'm glad you
yeah.
did. First of all, is there somebody in your life that you allow through that wall, that you're listening to and letting them encourage you, other than God?
Well, for a while it was only my husband. He was able to break down my defenses, in a loving way.
Right, right.
He just he's just always so consistent, and so kind, and always honest, and that's a huge thing.
Yeah,
For someone to be able to overcome any kind of mental illness. I think you have to have a person who is 100% lovingly honest with you,
yeah.
and that
It's
is
important that you
literally,
see that as it is too. Like, if you
yeah.
know he's lovingly honest and you accept that, that can be very validating for somebody with
Yes.
depression. You know?
100%. And at first, I didn't accept it. I thought everything had ulterior motives.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought there had to be something he
yeah.
wanted,
That's your
and
broken talking. Hmm.
yeah, that was my broken talking. Ooh, that's a
Yeah.
good line.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, and then I've recently made a couple of acquaintances that have become really dear friends and close friends, and also I have of course, my family and everything. There's been a lot of healing in my family over the years that I've been able to open up to them about some stuff. But I also have some dear friends that are able to hold me accountable, and tell me the truth when I don't necessarily want to hear it, or it's hard to hear it.
Hmm.
I have this really bad habit that has still stemmed from uh, my depression and everything. For years, I've always apologized for everything, and so, like, I just apologize for like, even just like existing. I
Yep. I
apologize.
do the same thing. Yeah.
I was always sorry, and they told me, they're like, you don't have to apologize for everything. And I thought, well, I don't ever want to be in the way. I just always feel like I always feel like I'm in the way, or I'm in people's space, or I'm too much,
Hmm.
and I'm being on a stage. You always feel like you're too much. But I'm sure you probably sometimes feel that way as well, with just
Of course. Yeah.
doing what
I
you
think
do.
everybody feels that way
And
at times. Yeah.
yeah, and they were like, "You're not too much. You're you." And they go, "Don't apologize for who you are. If you feel like you did something wrong, be like, say something else other than 'I'm sorry.' Like maybe say 'my bad' or 'thank you for your patience.'" And
Yeah.
little things like that. I mean, it seems like so stupidly simple, but it so hugely impacts your thought processes about yourself and even about others.
Mhm.
And because I quit seeing, I mean, because it's you sometimes don't realize it, that you start viewing people how you view yourself. And so I could love people truly until I learned to love myself and
And
love who I was.
man, I wish more people would get that earlier. I wish I got that earlier in life.
Same.
You
Me
know,
too.
man, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, because you did attempt suicide. You mentioned that, you're, here by miracle. Um,
Right.
and now you're advocating to others and trying to teach others, through your own darkness and stuff. Knowing what you went through, was there anything anybody could have told you, to stop you from doing what you did?
If I had had someone that I felt safe talking to, um, or so being in a big family was one of the little things that, not necessarily a downfall, because it was such a blessing to grow up the way I did.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a middle child,
Mm-hmm.
so we kind of melt into the background.
Yeah.
And I mean, every one of my siblings at some point or another have come forward and said, that I didn't feel seen in a way, and not so many words, but that kind of concept. And um, and it's not, my parents, they loved us, and they were amazing parents. They loved us dearly, and I never wondered if I was going to have a safe place to rest my head, or if I was going to have a full belly that night. Sometimes I was too full, but
Well, depression
I
doesn't
just,
ever make sense, right?
no.
It's
And
the happiest of people get depressed. Believe me, I know. Yeah.
yes, and it's weird because I felt like I didn't deserve to be depressed.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like I wasn't struggling enough to feel the way I did. Like there wasn't enough bad things in my life. I shouldn't feel bad about myself. I shouldn't feel bad about my life. That's how I was. And so, like, I don't know if anyone would have been able to um,
Get through.
come through that
Yeah.
if if they hadn't earned my trust first, that like my husband had to, where I could know that it was done in love. Because siblings, you always are, you know
Yeah. Yeah.
you fight like cats and dogs. And so I didn't, I mean, honestly, and they know this, I didn't trust my siblings
Hmm.
to not hurt me or not try to, have it out for me. And my parents, they had their lives, they had their things. And at that age, you don't understand that what love really is, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, you really can't comprehend a parent's love either. And I didn't understand it until I became a mom. And that my parents would have, sorry,
You're good.
my parents would have done anything to help me. And my dad blamed himself to this day. And my mom sometimes does too. And it's not their fault. They loved us. It just, the mind can play you like a fiddle.
Yeah.
And if you don't learn what your thoughts are, that's the number one thing I'm trying to teach my son, is your thoughts will betray you. They will destroy you if you let them. And so
Yep.
I always tell him, don't let those thoughts take root. Don't think like this. Don't think like that. Make sure you remember who you are and what's the truth. Don't wallow in self-pity and in anger and self-deprecation.
Hmm.
You do that and you're just going to spiral out of control. And I could literally, I would totally do a TED talk any day of the week about what I've learned and how it's helped me. And I'm not saying that my kid's going to grow up perfect. I'm sure he's going to have his struggles, but I praise God that I learned the lessons I did, that I'm able to help my son um, work through whatever craziness his teenage years bring.
So how
It's
do
gonna
you
be
how do
crazy,
you
I'm
go
sure.
about helping other people now? Because, like, you were in that situation. You kind of self admitted that you don't know if anybody could have told you, or helped you through that. So
Right.
how do you help somebody that's a stranger and gain their trust enough to where they actually listen?
So one of the things that I look back now and can see is that, ironically enough, music is the one thing that could always get through.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time that this happened, I was listening to a lot of negative stuff. I was not focusing on good things. I was, it just wasn't, nothing uplifting. It wasn't necessarily like bad. It was just not uplifting.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I did start listening to uplifting music, and I'm not even talking about just like gospel stuff. I'm talking just things that are just like positive,
Joyful.
sweet
Joyful.
stories, or just,
Yeah.
just, anthem songs, um,
Yeah.
I've noticed a change in my behavior and in my thought processes. And when I look back, I can see it very clearly. Hindsight's 2020 for a reason. And as I go through this journey with music, that's been my goal. I mean, I try very hard to have as uplifting and hopeful music as possible. Now, I do have story songs that I just wrote one recently that's about a girl burning something down because a guy cheated on her.
Mhm.
But it's not what you think. But nobody dies. I know they say that girls in Texas country music like to kill off a guy that cheats, but
Well, you're not a
anyways,
true artist in Texas until you have at least one murder song.
right? But I don't have a murder song, but it's about as close to the edge as I'll get. But no, but other than that, like, I have story songs, but I try for the most part, like, to show people real life and bring hope in my music. If it's not uplifting, it makes you think, at least.
Mhm.
Like, it makes you think deep, like What the Whiskey Gave You talked about that. That song, it ends on a sad note. It really does.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you think of it from the perspective of the person like I'm singing it, the person who lost that person is getting closure throughout the song. They're understanding they couldn't save that person. They did what they could. They tried their hardest. It wasn't on them. And it's that moment of realization of, this is not on me. They made their own decisions. And there was that closure there. And on the flip side, I've also, because I was an addict for a while as well, I've had people also come up to me and be like, this made me think. And I'm like, I know, because it would have made me think too, that there was a guy who was just getting out of alcoholism, and his wife was there, and they came to a show, and it was right after I wrote the song. I played it, and he came up and he goes, you literally just opened my eyes to how my wife feels about what I'm dealing with. And he goes, this has just given me a huge boost of a determination to get through this and to overcome this addiction. He goes, that I don't want to put her through that. And she was bawling, and
Yeah.
I was like in tears, and we were all crying. And that's the power of music, though. Like, even though it's a sad song, it made someone think, I can do better, and I can do more than what I've been allowing myself to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really what I want to do with my music, is just, I mean, entertain people. Yes, 100%. I want people to enjoy it, but I also want them to walk away having learned something or thought something that help them along.
I think
journey.
the word is feel, right? You want people to feel something, right? And that's what music and art really is about. It's about that feeling. And like, if people don't feel something, then what's the point, right? So whether it's a positive feeling or a negative feeling or whatever, if they resonate with something, you've done your job as a creator. I love that.